The Academy vessel Synthesis hung motionless in the void between star systems, its hybrid technologies masking its presence from conventional sensors. 2 weeks of travel through hyperspace had brought the integrated cadet team to the edge of known space, where the first scouts of the unknown fleet were projected to appear. Marcus floated in the zero-gravity command center, surrounded by his classmates who had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly integrated multi-species crew. Crystalline computational networks interfaced directly with insectoid coordination systems, while ethereal energy manipulation enhanced draconian strength and titanoid defensive capabilities. Human tactical creativity tied it all together through approaches that none of the other species would have considered. "Contact," announced Cadet Blexok, his consciousness distributed across multiple sensor arrays simultaneously. "Single vessel, emerging from hyperspace at the projected coordinates." The main display activated, showing a ship unlike anything in their databases. It wasn't constructed so much as grown, its organic curves suggesting biological rather than technological origins. Yet energy readings indicated power systems far beyond anything the Galactic Defense Alliance could produce. "Size comparison?" asked Commander Thexani. "Roughly equivalent to one of our heavy cruisers," reported Cadet Thisara, her ethereal senses analyzing the energy patterns. "But the internal structure is completely foreign. It's not compartmentalized like our ships. It's more like a single living organism." Marcus studied the readings with growing fascination. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "Look at the integration of systems, the efficiency of design. This isn't just advanced technology. This is evolutionary perfection. Should we maintain distance?" asked Cadet Zorith, his draconian instincts urging caution. "Actually," Marcus said slowly, "I think we should say hello." The command center erupted in surprised voices from multiple species. The idea of making direct contact contradicted every safety protocol and mission parameter. "Hear me out," Marcus continued, raising his hands for quiet. "Everything we've learned suggests they're intelligence gatherers, not aggressors. They've been studying us for years without making hostile moves. This is our chance to study them in return. And if they respond hostilely," pressed Cadet Veltar, "then we run," Marcus replied simply. "Our integrated propulsion systems are faster than anything they've shown. But if they wanted to destroy survey vessels, they could have eliminated our scout ships years ago." Commander Thexani considered the proposal. The mission had already violated numerous regulations. Going beyond reconnaissance to actual contact would be crossing another line entirely. "What kind of greeting did you have in mind?" she asked. Marcus manipulated the display, showing the alien vessel's approach vector. Standard peaceful contact protocols, but enhanced through our integrated capabilities. "Let them see what we've become," meaning, instead of a single species transmission, we send a coordinated message using all of our combined technologies. Show them that we've achieved the same kind of integration they have. It was a brilliant strategy. Rather than appearing as separate species trying to cooperate, they would present themselves as a unified civilization that had evolved beyond traditional limitations. "Transmission ready," reported Cadet Blexok, his insectoid communication systems now enhanced with crystalline processing and ethereal energy modulation. "Send it," Marcus ordered. The message that reached the alien vessel was unlike anything ever transmitted from their region of space. Multiple languages and mathematical concepts wove together in patterns that demonstrated not just intelligence, but collective intelligence. The transmission itself proved that the senders had achieved integration beyond anything the aliens had observed during their reconnaissance. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The organic vessel suddenly erupted with activity, its surface rippling with patterns of light and energy. Systems that had appeared dormant came online, and the ship began transmitting back on frequencies that the synthesis's hybrid sensors could barely detect. "They're excited," announced Cadet Thisara with surprise. "The energy patterns suggest intense interest, not hostility. Can we decode their response?" asked Marcus. "Working on it," replied Cadet Blexok, his enhanced processing capabilities struggling with completely alien communication protocols. "The mathematical foundations are familiar, but the conceptual framework is revolutionary." Minutes passed as the integrated team worked to understand the alien message. Gradually, patterns began to emerge. Not words or images, but concepts that transcended language entirely. "I think," said Cadet Veltar slowly, "they're asking if we want to join them." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. The unknown fleet wasn't an invasion force at all. It was a recruitment mission. "Join them how?" asked Commander Thexani. More transmissions flowed between the vessels as communication protocols were established. The alien message became clearer with each exchange, revealing intentions that no one had anticipated. "They're scouts for something called the Convergence," Cadet Blexock reported, his translation systems finally achieving compatibility. "A collective of integrated civilizations from across the galaxy. They're looking for species that have achieved sufficient unity to participate." Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. "That's why they've been studying us so carefully. They're not evaluating our military capabilities. They're assessing our integration potential." "And our response?" prompted Thexani. The alien vessel was beginning to approach, its organic systems reconfiguring themselves in real time. It was clear that they considered the synthesis to be worthy of closer contact. "We learn everything we can," Marcus replied. "This is the opportunity of a millennium, not just for our species, but for galactic civilization itself." Over the following hours, the two vessels engaged in an exchange of information that revolutionized understanding on both sides. The aliens, who called themselves the Architects, had indeed spent centuries traveling the galaxy and identifying civilizations that showed potential for true integration. Most species, they explained, remained trapped in competitive rather than cooperative thinking. They developed technology and military power, but never learned to transcend the limitations of single-species perspective. Such civilizations inevitably stagnated or destroyed themselves. But occasionally the Architects found something different. Species that had learned to think beyond their own limitations, to combine different approaches into something greater than the sum of their parts. These civilizations were invited to join the Convergence, a galactic community of integrated worlds that shared knowledge, resources, and capabilities across vast distances. "How many civilizations are part of this convergence?" asked Marcus. The response was staggering. Thousands of integrated civilizations across multiple galaxy arms, each contributing unique capabilities to a collective knowledge base that spanned millions of years of development. "And they want us to join?" asked Cadet Zorith, still struggling to comprehend the scale. "Not us," the Architect representative clarified through increasingly sophisticated translation protocols. "You. The integration you have achieved in this vessel represents the potential we have been seeking. But integration cannot be forced or gifted. It must be chosen and developed by each civilization independently." Commander Thexani understood the implications immediately. "They're offering to help us complete the integration process we've started." "In exchange for what?" asked Cadet Morden, his pragmatic nature asserting itself. "In exchange for contributing our unique perspectives to the Convergence," the Architect replied. "Every civilization that achieves true integration develops approaches that benefit all others. Your species' tactical creativity, combined with the defensive capabilities of your allies, represents something new in our experience." The offer was everything Marcus had dreamed of when he first proposed the integration project. Not just survival, but evolution into something greater than any single species could achieve alone. "What about our governments?" asked Cadet Thisara. "The High Command? The various councils, the political structures that control our civilizations?" "Integration cannot be imposed from above," the Architect explained patiently. "It must grow from understanding and choice. You have demonstrated that such integration is possible. Others will follow when they see the benefits." Marcus looked around the command center at his classmates, who had become representatives of a new kind of galactic civilization. Their final examination had become first contact with a community they never knew existed. "I think," he said slowly, "we need to go home and show everyone what we've learned." The return journey to Galactic Defense Alliance space would take 2 weeks. But Marcus suspected that the real journey, the transformation of galactic civilization itself, was just beginning. The threat they had feared had become the opportunity they had never dared to imagine, and it had all started with a simple lesson about identifying the real threat in a room full of cadets. The human in row 3 hadn't been the danger after all. He had been the key to recognizing that sometimes the greatest threat is the failure to see the greatest opportunity. The holographic display shifted dramatically, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy's outer rim territories. Red indicators pulsed ominously at the very edge of explored space, marking the locations where the anomalous readings had been detected. The pattern was unlike anything the alien cadets had ever seen. The first detection occurred 847 standard days ago, Commander Thexani explained, her forearms manipulating the display to highlight different sectors, initially dismissed as sensor malfunctions or natural phenomena. But the readings have been growing stronger and more coordinated. Cadet Zorith leaned forward, his draconian eyes studying the data patterns. These energy signatures, they don't match any known propulsion or weapons technology. Correct, Thexani confirmed. More concerning is the speed of their advancement. Our most conservative estimates suggest they'll reach the outer colonies within 2 standard years. Marcus studied the display with the same methodical attention he had given the earlier scenarios. While his classmates focused on the obvious markers of military strength, he was looking for patterns that might reveal intentions or capabilities. Commander, he said slowly, these aren't random movements. There's a systematic progression here. What do you see? Thexani prompted. Marcus stood and approached the holographic map. They're not just advancing toward our territory. They're studying us. Look at the probe patterns, the timing of their movements. Every time one of our scout ships investigates an anomaly, they withdraw just far enough to avoid direct contact while maintaining sensor range. He traced invisible lines between the detected positions. They're mapping our response times, our tactical doctrines, our technology signatures. Just like the human intelligence gathering you showed us earlier, but on a massive scale. The realization sent a wave of unease through the chamber. The unknown entities weren't just approaching. They were conducting reconnaissance operations that demonstrated sophisticated intelligence and patience. How large are we talking about? Asked Cadet Veltar, his serpentine form coiling with nervous energy. Commander Thexani manipulated the display to show scale comparisons. Based on the energy readings, individual vessels appear to be roughly equivalent to Galactic Defense Alliance dreadnoughts. But the number of signatures suggests a fleet of unprecedented size. The numbers were staggering. Hundreds of massive vessels moving in coordinated formations, supported by thousands of smaller craft. It represented a military force larger than the combined fleets of all known species. But why haven't they made contact? Wondered Cadet Thaisara. If their capabilities are so advanced, why maintain distance? Marcus was studying the timeline of detections, looking for patterns in the data. Maybe they have made contact, just not with us. Explain, demanded Cadet Mordun. Look at the progression of their movements, Marcus said, highlighting specific areas of the map. They're not just probing our borders randomly. They're following specific routes, investigating particular systems. It's almost like they're following a map. Commander Thexani's crystalline features showed surprise. You're suggesting they have inside information about our territorial organization? I'm suggesting they've been in contact with someone who does, Marcus replied grimly. The refugee camp scenario you showed us earlier, what if that wasn't just historical data? What if it's happening right now on the outer rim colonies? The implications were terrifying. If the unknown fleet had already established contact with displaced populations, separatist groups or disaffected colonies, they might have detailed intelligence about Galactic Defense Alliance capabilities and weaknesses. We need to consider another possibility. Marcus continued, his expression growing more troubled. What if they're not invaders at all? The alien cadets looked at him with confusion and disbelief. Not invaders? Sputtered Cadet Blexoak. With that level of military capability? Think about it from their perspective, Marcus explained. They approach a region of space controlled by multiple species with different technologies, different tactical doctrines, different political systems. They've probably encountered situations like this before. He gestured toward the map. Their careful reconnaissance, their systematic approach, their avoidance of direct contact. That's not necessarily preparation for invasion. It could be preparation for negotiation. Negotiation for what? Asked Cadet Zorith skeptically. Integration, Marcus said quietly. What if they're not trying to conquer us? What if they're trying to absorb us? Commander Thexani's 4 eyes focused intently on the human cadet. Continue that analysis. A sufficiently advanced civilization wouldn't need to destroy conquered territories, Marcus explained. They'd want to preserve infrastructure, populations, and resources. But they'd also want to ensure compatibility and prevent resistance. He pointed to the scattered detection points, so they study potential subjects extensively. They identify leadership structures, technological capabilities, cultural weaknesses. They possibly make contact with selected groups to assess integration potential. And then, prompted Cadet Veltar. Then they make an offer, Marcus said. Join willingly and maintain autonomy within their structure, or resist and face consequences designed specifically to exploit every weakness they've identified. The scenario was chillingly plausible. An advanced civilization could indeed approach expansion as a management problem, rather than a military campaign. The massive fleet wouldn't be designed for destruction, but for overwhelming demonstration of futility and resistance. But that's still invasion, protested Cadet Thisara. Forced integration is still conquest. True, Marcus agreed. But it changes how we should respond. Traditional military preparation might be exactly what they expect and are prepared to counter. Commander Thexani nodded slowly, which brings us back to the central lesson of today's exercise. The greatest threats often don't look like what we expect threats to look like. She manipulated the display to show communication logs from the Outer Rim territories. We've been receiving fragmented reports from some of the more distant colonies. Stories about helpful strangers offering advanced technology and solutions to local problems. The pieces began falling into place. The unknown entities were indeed making contact, but through seemingly benevolent means. They were positioning themselves as benefactors rather than conquerors, making integration seem like an attractive opportunity rather than a forced submission. It's brilliant, Marcus admitted reluctantly. By the time anyone realizes what's happening, the integration process is already complete. Local populations become willing participants in their own absorption. So, the silence that followed Marcus's revelation stretched uncomfortably long. 56 alien cadets sat processing the implications of what they had just learned. While their worldviews underwent fundamental reconstruction, Commander Thexani allowed the moment to extend, understanding that paradigm shifts required time to take root. Cadet Zorith was the first to break the silence, his draconian pride struggling against newfound respect. If humans are so dangerous, why are you here? Why reveal these capabilities to us? Marcus considered the question carefully. Because the real threat isn't human tactics or human thinking. The real threat is ignorance, yours and ours. Explain, demanded Cadet Morden, his armored frame still bristling with defensive systems. Earth spent most of its history fighting itself, Marcus began, settling back into his chair. We developed asymmetric tactics because we had to. When your neighbor has better weapons, you learn to be smarter, faster, more creative. When conventional wisdom says you should lose, you find unconventional ways to win. He gestured toward the holographic display, which still showed their classroom. But that same history taught us something else. Isolation breeds stagnation. Secrecy breeds paranoia. If Earth tries to maintain strategic advantages through deception and hidden capabilities, we become the very threat you should be worried about. Commander Thexani's crystalline features reflected approval. Elaborate on that point, Cadet Chen. A species that wins through deception and misdirection, that gains advantages by exploiting others' weaknesses, that remains hidden until it's too late to respond effectively. Marcus paused, letting the implications sink in. That's not a defensive force. That's a predator. Cadet Thisara's ethereal form flickered with understanding. You're saying that human capabilities could be used offensively as well as defensively. I'm saying they already have been, Marcus replied soberly. Every victory I identified in those scenarios could have been a conquest instead of a defense, depending on human intentions. The weight of this admission settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. The alien cadets began to understand that they weren't just dealing with an unexpected defensive capability, but with a potential existential threat to the established galactic order. So why reveal this? Pressed Cadet Veltar, his serpentine form coiled with tension. Why not maintain the advantage of being underestimated? Marcus stood again, but this time his movement carried a different energy. Where before he had been calm and analytical, now he seemed passionate, almost urgent. Because Earth doesn't want to be a predator, he said firmly. We've seen what happens when one group gains overwhelming advantages over others. We've lived through the consequences of unchecked power, hidden agendas, and technological disparity. He walked to the center of the room, addressing each species represented among his classmates. Humans have a saying: those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Earth's history is full of empires that rose through superior tactics and technology, only to become corrupt, complacent, and eventually fall to the next innovation. Commander Thexani watched this display with growing interest. The human was demonstrating exactly the kind of thinking that made his species so dangerous and so valuable. What Earth wants, Marcus continued, is to break that cycle. Instead of hiding our capabilities until we're strong enough to dominate, we're sharing them while we're still weak enough to be trusted. Cadet Blexoak's insectoid mind processed this through multiple simultaneous thought streams, but sharing tactical advantages reduces their effectiveness. Why would any species deliberately weaken their position? Because short-term tactical advantage isn't worth long-term strategic disaster, Marcus replied. If Earth becomes the galaxy's hidden threat, eventually you'll unite against us. And if we somehow win that conflict, we become the very oppressors we're trying to avoid. The logic was undeniable, but it challenged every military doctrine the alien cadets had ever learned. Species gained power through superiority, maintained it through strength, and lost it through weakness. The human approach seemed to intentionally embrace vulnerability. There's another reason, Marcus added quietly. The universe is big and we don't know what's out there beyond our current borders. The threats we've identified so far might be nothing compared to what's coming. Commander Thexani's 4 eyes focused intently on the human. Continue that thought, Cadet. Every scenario you showed us today demonstrated the same principle. The real threat is usually the one you don't see coming. We're all so focused on fighting each other, on maintaining the balance of power within known space, that we might miss something completely outside our experience. Marcus gestured toward the display, which now showed a map of explored galactic territory. This represents less than 3% of our galaxy. We have no idea what intelligence might exist in the remaining 97%, or what capabilities they might possess. The implication was sobering. While the various species of the Galactic Defense Alliance competed for advantage and worried about human tactical innovations, truly alien threats might be developing completely unknown forms of warfare. So what do you propose? Asked Cadet Thisara, her translucent form shimmering with curiosity. Integration, Marcus said simply. Real integration, not just political alliance. Combine human tactical flexibility with draconian strength, crystalline computational power, ethereal energy manipulation, insectoid coordination, serpentine stealth capabilities, and titanoid defensive systems. He looked around the room at each species represented. Separately, we're all vulnerable to something. Together, we might be able to adapt to anything. Cadet Zorath's scales had gradually shifted from defensive coloration back to normal. You're talking about fundamental changes to military doctrine, combined training programs, shared intelligence networks. I'm talking about survival, Marcus replied, because the next threat we face might not give us the luxury of learning from our mistakes. Commander Thexani stepped forward, her crystalline features reflecting the ambient light in complex patterns. Which brings us to the real purpose of today's exercise. The alien cadets turned toward their instructor, sensing that another revelation was coming. The Galactic Defense Academy has been monitoring long-range sensor networks for the past 6 months, Thexani announced. We've detected anomalous readings from the Outer Rim territories. Massive energy signatures, coordinated movement patterns, and technological signatures that don't match any known species. A chill settled over the chamber as the implications became clear. The theoretical future threat Marcus had described might already be approaching. The chamber fell into an expectant hush as Commander Thexani prepared the 7th and final scenario. The alien cadets had been thoroughly shaken by their previous failures, while Marcus had demonstrated an uncanny ability to identify threats that everyone else missed. The tension in the room was palpable. This final scenario, Thexani announced solemnly, is not from the archives. It is happening right now in this room. The holographic display activated, but instead of showing a distant battlefield or foreign installation, it displayed a perfect 3-dimensional representation of their current classroom. Every cadet could see themselves sitting in their assigned seats, every detail rendered with startling accuracy. 56 alien cadets immediately began looking around the room frantically, searching for hidden weapons, concealed enemies, or obvious dangers. Some activated personal scanning devices. Others tried to access security networks. The draconian cadet's scales began shifting to combat coloration, while the crystalline being's structure resonated with defensive frequencies. Marcus remained motionless in his seat, watching his classmates' growing panic with calm observation. His stillness was noted by several cadets, who began to wonder if the human knew something they didn't. "I detect no weapons," reported Cadet Blexock, the insectoid's multiple eyes swiveling in all directions. "No concealed threats, no hostile entities." "The security systems show green across all parameters," added Cadet Thaisara, her ethereal form shimmering with nervous energy. "This room is certified safe." Commander Thexani watched the chaos with patient interest. "And yet, cadets, I assure you that a significant threat exists in this very chamber, one that could potentially compromise the security of the entire Galactic Defense Alliance." The search intensified. Cadets began examining each other suspiciously, wondering if one of their classmates might be a hidden enemy agent. Some focused on the advanced technology embedded in the walls, suspecting sabotage or surveillance equipment. "Commander," Cadet Zorith said urgently, "perhaps we should evacuate while security conducts a thorough scan." "That won't be necessary," Thexani replied calmly. "The threat isn't hiding. It's sitting in plain sight." This statement caused another wave of paranoid searching. Cadets began pointing scanning devices at each other, checking for concealed weapons or signs of hostile intent. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense as suspicion spread through the room. Marcus finally spoke, his voice cutting through the chaos with quiet authority. "You're all looking in the wrong place." The room fell silent as every eye turned toward the human. His calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to the frantic energy of his classmates. "Where should we be looking?" demanded Cadet Mordun, his armored form bristling with weapon systems that had automatically activated. "At yourselves," Marcus replied simply, "at what you've just learned about threat assessment." Commander Thexani's crystalline features showed the first hint of a smile. "Please elaborate, Cadet Chen." Marcus stood slowly, his movements deliberate and non-threatening. "For the past hour, you've demonstrated that an entire generation of Galactic Defense Academy graduates has been trained to identify threats based on obvious, visible characteristics. Size, firepower, aggressive posture, alien appearance." He gestured toward his classmates. "Every scenario showed you the same lesson. The real threats don't look threatening. They look normal, peaceful, even helpful. But you're still not getting it." "Getting what?" hissed Cadet Veltar, coiling defensively. "The threat in this room isn't a weapon or a spy or a hidden enemy," Marcus explained patiently. "The threat is your complete inability to recognize actual danger when it doesn't fit your preconceptions." The alien cadets exchanged confused glances. Several seemed frustrated by what they perceived as a riddle without an answer. "Think about it," Marcus continued. "Earth is new to the galactic community. We're primitives with basic technology and no significant military contributions. We've been dismissed, overlooked, considered harmless." Understanding began to dawn on some faces, while others remained confused. But in every scenario Commander Thexani showed us, humans were the ones identifying weaknesses, exploiting vulnerabilities, and achieving victory against superior forces. And you're all so focused on looking for traditional threats that you can't see what's right in front of you. Cadet Thaisara's ethereal form flickered with realization. "You're saying that humans are the threat?" "I'm saying that your military doctrine, your tactical training, your entire approach to threat assessment has a massive blind spot," Marcus replied. "You're preparing to fight the last war, not the next one." Commander Thexani stepped forward, her forearms gesturing for attention. "Cadet Chen is correct. The scenarios I showed you were all real incidents from the past 50 years. In each case, human forces defeated opponents with superior technology, larger numbers, or greater resources. The implications began sinking in. Earth, the primitive backwater world, had been quietly accumulating military victories against established galactic powers. "But how?" asked Cadet Zorith, his pride clearly wounded. "Our weapons are more advanced, our ships are faster, our soldiers are stronger." "Because," Marcus said gently, "while you were perfecting your technology, we were perfecting our ability to think differently, to see patterns you miss, to exploit weaknesses you don't know exist, to win battles before they start." He looked around the room at his classmates' shocked faces. On Earth, we call it asymmetric warfare. When you can't match your enemy's strengths, you find their weaknesses. When you can't outbuild them, you outthink them. Commander Thexani nodded approvingly. The Galactic Defense Alliance has ruled through technological superiority and conventional military doctrine for centuries. Those methods work well against enemies who fight the same way. But humans don't fight the same way. So what happens now? Asked Cadet Blexock nervously. Now, Thexani replied, you learn to think like humans do. Because the greatest threat to galactic security isn't some unknown alien invasion force armed with superior technology. It's the possibility that the Alliance will become complacent, predictable, and vulnerable to enemies who think outside our established parameters. Marcus sat back down, the lesson complete. Around him, 56 alien cadets grappled with the uncomfortable realization that everything they thought they knew about identifying threats had been wrong. The real danger had indeed been sitting in row 3, seat 14, not because the human was their enemy, but because he represented a completely different way of thinking about warfare itself. Commander Thexani observed the growing unease among her cadets with satisfaction. The lesson was beginning to take hold, though many still failed to grasp its full implications. She decided to press forward with scenarios that would challenge their preconceptions even further. Let's examine another situation, she announced, bringing up the 4th holographic display. This time, the image showed a research facility on a remote asteroid. Everything appeared normal. Scientists from various species worked at their stations, conducting experiments and analyzing data. Security appeared minimal, with only a few guards visible. The facility seemed peaceful and unremarkable. As expected, 56 alien cadets saw no immediate threat. They had grown somewhat more cautious after the previous scenarios, but this sterile research environment appeared genuinely safe. Marcus, however, studied the image with increasing concern, his eyes moving systematically across every visible detail. This appears to be a standard scientific installation, ventured Cadet Thisara, though her confidence had diminished noticeably. I see no obvious dangers. The security seems appropriate for a research facility, agreed Cadet Zorath, though he kept glancing nervously at Marcus. Perhaps too light but not threatening. Marcus raised his hand slowly. The gesture sent a ripple of attention through the chamber. Even Commander Thexani seemed intrigued by what the human might have observed. The research they're conducting, Marcus said carefully. What exactly are they studying? Commander Thexani smiled, her crystalline features catching the light. An astute question. They're researching quantum entanglement applications for faster-than-light communication. Very advanced, very beneficial technology. Then why, Marcus continued, are there biocontainment protocols in place? Look at the air filtration systems, the sealed laboratory sections, the specialized disposal units. Those aren't for quantum physics research. The alien cadets squinted at the hologram, trying to see what the human had noticed. Commander Thexani enhanced certain sections of the image, highlighting the details Marcus had identified. You're suggesting this isn't what it appears to be? Prompted Thexani. I'm suggesting they're weaponizing something biological, Marcus replied grimly. The quantum entanglement research is probably real, but it's being used to develop delivery systems for biological weapons. Instantaneous deployment across vast distances. The revelation hit the chamber like a shockwave. The seemingly peaceful research facility was actually developing weapons of mass destruction. The hologram confirmed Marcus's assessment, showing how the facility had later been used to deploy a devastating plague against 3 different star systems. Cadet Veltar's serpentine form coiled with agitation. How did you know to look for those details? On Earth, we learned early that the most dangerous threats often hide behind innocent facades, Marcus explained. True evil rarely announces itself. Commander Thexani nodded approvingly before bringing up the 5th scenario. This image showed a massive military parade on the homeworld of the Hegemony Alliance. Thousands of soldiers marched in perfect formation, while enormous war machines rolled through the streets. Plasma cannons and fusion reactors powered weapons of unimaginable destructive capability. The display was designed to be overwhelming, showcasing military might that dwarfed anything most species could produce. The alien cadets were suitably impressed and intimidated. Now this, declared Cadet Morden, represents a clear and obvious threat. Look at that firepower. Agreed, hissed Cadet Veltar. Any species facing this military force would be doomed. Marcus studied the parade with the same methodical attention he had given the previous scenarios. While the other cadets focused on the impressive weapons and formations, he noticed something else entirely. "Commander," he said quietly, "what's the date of this parade?" "Standard Galactic Calendar, day 247 of Cycle 3847, why do you ask?" "And when did the Hegemony Alliance surrender to the Earth Defense Force?" A stunned silence filled the chamber. Commander Thexani's four eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Day 251 of Cycle 3847, Cadet Chen. 4 days after this parade." The alien cadets erupted in confused whispers. How could such a mighty military force have been defeated so quickly? The display had shown enough firepower to level planets. The parade was a show of strength, Marcus explained to his bewildered classmates, but it was also intelligence gathering for Earth forces. Every weapon system, every tactical formation, every piece of technology was being recorded and analyzed. By the time this parade ended, Earth strategists already knew exactly how to counter everything they had seen. "But the weapons," protested Cadet Blexock. "Surely their technological superiority should have mattered." "Superior technology means nothing if your enemy knows exactly what you're planning to do with it," Marcus replied. "The Hegemony made their capabilities public. Earth made theirs secret." Commander Thexani advanced to the sixth scenario, her expression growing more serious. The hologram now showed what appeared to be a refugee camp. Hundreds of displaced beings from various species huddled in temporary shelters, looking tired and desperate. Aid workers moved among them, distributing food and medical supplies. The scene was heartbreaking but appeared completely harmless. Every alien cadet looked at the image with sympathy and confusion. Where was the threat in a refugee camp? Marcus, however, grew very still as he studied the display. "This is wrong," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" asked Commander Thexani. "The demographics are wrong. Look at the age distribution, the species representation, the family groupings. This isn't a random refugee population fleeing a disaster." Marcus pointed to specific areas of the hologram. "These are all military-age males from species known for their combat abilities. The families are incomplete. No elderly, very few young children. And look at their physical condition. These aren't people weakened by hardship. They're fit, alert, organized." The terrible truth became clear as the simulation played forward. The refugee camp had been a staging area for a massive invasion force. The sympathetic aid workers had unknowingly provided intelligence about defensive positions and supply lines. When the attack came, it was devastating and perfectly coordinated. The alien cadets sat in stunned silence as they realized how completely they had been deceived by appearances. Every scenario had challenged their assumptions about what constituted a real threat. "One more scenario," Commander Thexani announced, though her tone suggested this final test would be the most challenging yet. The Galactic Defense Academy's simulation chamber hummed with energy, as 57 cadets from across 12 different species sat in perfect rows. Commander Thexani, a towering Catherian with 4 arms and crystalline skin, stood before the massive holographic display showing various alien creatures, weapons, and scenarios. "Today's exercise is simple," Thexani announced, her voice echoing through the chamber. "I will show you images from actual conflict zones throughout the galaxy. Your task is to identify the greatest threat in each scenario. This isn't about combat ability or firepower. This is about recognizing true danger." The first image materialized in the air above them. A massive Zephyrian war beast, standing 30 feet tall with razor-sharp claws and acid-dripping fangs, faced off against a small group of what appeared to be primitive humanoids carrying simple projectile weapons. The beast's eyes glowed red, and its armored hide showed scars from countless battles. Immediately, 56 hands, claws, tentacles, and appendages shot up into the air. The response was unanimous among the alien cadets. Cadet Zoreth, a proud Draconian, spoke first without waiting to be called upon. "Obviously the Zephyrian war beast, Commander. Look at its size and natural weaponry. Those primitive beings don't stand a chance." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The crystalline cadet from the third moon of Xerion nodded its geometric head. "The beast's acid alone could dissolve their primitive armor in seconds." Commander Thexani's 4 eyes swept across the room, noting every raised appendage. Every cadet seemed confident in their assessment. Every cadet except one. In row 3, seat 14, sat Marcus Chen, the only human in the academy. His brown eyes studied the hologram intently, while his hands remained firmly planted on his desk. The other cadets barely acknowledged his presence anymore. Humans were new to the galactic community, barely a century since first contact. Their planet Earth was considered a backwater world with no significant military contributions to the Galactic Defense Alliance. Interesting responses, Thexani said, her tone neutral. Let me show you what happened next. The hologram shifted, displaying the aftermath. The Great War beast lay motionless, its massive form riddled with precise holes. The humanoid stood victorious, their primitive weapons smoking from recent use. Several cadets gasped in surprise. Those weapons, whispered Cadet Veltar, a snake-like serpentine. They appear more effective than anticipated. Commander Thexani nodded slowly. The humans call them rifles. Kinetic projectile weapons that use chemical propulsion. Primitive by our standards, yet devastatingly effective. These particular humans were from a world called Earth, defending their colony from this Zephyrian assault. The chamber fell silent. Many cadets shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward Marcus with newfound curiosity. The human remained focused on the display, his expression unreadable. But Commander, protested Cadet Mordun, a heavily armored titanoid, surely this was just luck, or perhaps the beast was already wounded. An excellent question, Thexani replied. Let's examine the next scenario. A new image appeared. This time it showed a space battle. A massive Korthak dreadnought, bristling with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes, engaged a much smaller vessel. The smaller ship appeared to be of human design, sleek but unremarkable compared to the technological marvel it faced. Again, 56 appendages rose immediately. The choice seemed obvious to everyone except Marcus, who continued to study the display with growing intensity. The Korthak dreadnought, announced Cadet Thisara, a graceful ethereal whose translucent body shimmered with confidence. Their quantum torpedo technology is legendary. That small ship is clearly outmatched. Agreed, chimed in Cadet Blexok, a insectoid hive mind representative. The size difference alone tells the story. This engagement should last mere minutes. Commander Thexani's expression remained neutral as she advanced the simulation. The result was shocking. The human vessel had somehow maneuvered behind the massive dreadnought and delivered a devastating blow to its reactor core. The proud Korthak ship drifted powerless in space. How? Gasped Cadet Zorith. That maneuver should have been impossible. The humans call it lateral thinking, Thexani explained. While our Korthak friends relied on superior firepower and traditional tactics, the human captain identified a weakness in their reactor shielding and exploited it using unconventional attack patterns. Marcus finally shifted in his seat, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Several cadets noticed and began whispering among themselves. The draconian cadet's eyes narrowed as he studied the human with growing suspicion. Surely these are isolated incidents, Commander. Cadet Veltar hissed softly. Anomalies in the data. Let's test that theory, Thexani replied, bringing up a third scenario. This image showed what appeared to be a peaceful, diplomatic gathering. Representatives from various species sat around an elegant conference table aboard a neutral space station. Everything looked serene and proper. Once again, every alien cadet saw no threat at all, while Marcus leaned forward, his eyes scanning every detail of the scene. There's no apparent danger here, observed Cadet Thisara. This appears to be a standard diplomatic meeting. Agreed, said Cadet Morden. All security protocols appear to be followed correctly. Commander Thexani zoomed in on one section of the image. Look more carefully. What do you notice about this particular delegate? The cadets squinted at the highlighted figure. It was a human female sitting quietly with her hands folded, appearing to take notes on a small device. She looked utterly unremarkable. I see nothing unusual, admitted Cadet Blexok. She appears to be documenting the proceedings normally. The device she's using, Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but clear. It's not a standard recorder. The antenna configuration is wrong, and those aren't memory storage indicators on the side panel. Silence fell over the chamber. Commander Thexani's four eyes focused intently on the human cadet. Please continue, Cadet Chen. Based on the component layout, I'd say it's a communications device. Probably long-range, possibly even faster than light-capable. She's not taking notes. She's transmitting real-time intelligence to someone else. The hologram shifted to show the outcome. The peaceful diplomatic meeting had been a setup. Enemy forces had used the intelligence gathered by the human agent to launch a surprise attack on the station. The gathered delegates barely escaped with their lives. For the first time since the exercise began, several alien cadets looked genuinely troubled. They began to understand that they had fundamentally misjudged what constituted a real threat.